Welcome to my channel. I'm Mimi and we are making my March journal today. I found these placemats and that's what I'm using as the cover. Everything's already cut down and ready to go. I did that off camera because it honestly can take a while to pick what papers and everything you want. These here are my digitals for March. They'll be available in my Etsy shop soon. I will leave the link for that down below. These are my hand-dyed papers. I dyed these the other day. You might see some dye still on my hands. Yep, it just won't come off. And then some scraps that I pulled out of my scrap bucket. This is what we're using today to make my March journal. It will be a cinch journal. This is the Mini Cinch from We Are Makers now. This is the cinch journal from We Are Makers. I'm showing here where you have to put that little blue piece to punch everything. It was a little hard to punch through this placemat. It's not plastic, it's not rubber, it's like a mix between plastic and rubber. It was a very weird feeling, and there's also bumps on the outside, so it was kind of difficult to punch through it, but it went through. But you'll see then that I have to cut all the pieces that didn't break off with scissors. Okay, so I'm just gonna do that. And yes, I am doing a voiceover. I'm very sorry. It will probably be very difficult for me to do any kind of videos because my house is a madhouse. 2 dogs, 2 birds, a cat, people yelling and carrying on, and it's just crazy here. I will never find a quiet time to actually do a video, which kind of stinks because I hate doing voiceovers. It makes me very uncomfortable, as if you can't tell. I also have very bad allergy problems today, so please don't mind my voice. So like I said, I'm just cutting off all these little squares that didn't completely come off with the cinch because of the material. And then I will, after this, start punching the pages. I have a little bit of a problem. I've had this cinch for I don't even know how long now, soon after it came out. And I screw up every time I use it. And I'm going to tell you how. I have the habit of grabbing a bunch of papers at one time, which you can do. It does go through. However, I always miss punch. Always. And I continually do it. You will see later that I mispunched a bunch of papers and I have to trim them and then repunch them. Don't be like me. Just do one paper at a time if you find that you're like this. I don't know why I continually just grab a bunch of papers. So here we go. I'm going to grab a bunch of these papers, and I believe one of them gets mispunched, which is not that bad actually. So yes, I'm just punching the papers to prep to put them on the binding. I'm going to tell you, like, every month I make a journal, and I like to mix up how I do my binding. Last month I did a sewn-in binding. Well, I mean this month for February it was a sewn-in binding. January was a ring binder. December was also, I believe, a spiral binding. Yes, it was a spiral binding. And then November, I actually used a composition book. So I try to mix up my journals. So I'm just going to finish punching all these papers. And once again, I just grabbed a stack. So we'll see how that plays out later. And I have a question for you about journal. Do you journal? Do you make your own journals? Do you do a new journal every month? I used to just finish out the journal when I was using pre-made journals. I would finish out the journal, but then I would stop in the middle of the month and have to start a new journal. Now I count out my pages to make sure I have enough pages for the 1 month, and that is it. So tell me, how do you journal? Do you make your own? Do you continue on in a journal until your journal is done? Do you use a bullet journal? Do you use a sewn signature journal? spiral notebook, a composition book. How do you actually journal, and what kind of journaling do you do? Are you a creative daily journal like I am? And I didn't start this way. I started out years ago using a happy planner. And I used my happy planner not only to plan, but for journaling. Then I went to a Bujo because honestly, I mean, happy planner kind of went downhill. So I went to a Bujo, and if you can't draw, a bullet journal is really not the way to go about it. I can't draw. Um, and then I went to just decorating journals in advance and just writing like maybe a sentence about my day. And then I went to creative daily journaling. This is where I'm at right now. It may change in the future, you never know. But I want to know, how do you journal? Do you do a junk journal, a creative daily journal? Are you a Bujo person? Are you a planner? You use a planner for memory keeping and journaling? Or are you just a glue booker? Like, tell me. I want to know because I rarely see, there's not that many people I follow on YouTube that are creative daily journalers. There's very few that journal the way I journal. So please tell me down in the comments, how do you journal? Who do you like to follow on YouTube to watch their journaling? That also I'm very interested about. Okay, so here we are. We're about to fix where I went wrong on all those punches. As you can see, they're laying there. I mispunched a bunch of papers, so I will have to trim them and then repunch. And I have to be careful because I need a new blade. My blade is just eating papers right now, but it's very hard to find blades. None of my local stores have had blades in stock. Um, are you finding that also? That's right. Are you finding that also? Are you able to find blades for your Fiskars trimmers? Or what kind of trimmer do you use? And do you find the blades last? Because my blades never last. I use my trimmer heavily and my blades just don't last. Okay, so here I am. I'm going to look for a paper that's going to go first because you can see through this. So I decide on that digital, and now I'm going to just start putting all my papers in an order. I don't care what order they go in. The most I do is not put two digitals next to each other or two dyed next to each other. I try to keep those a little bit separate. If I see a paper has a kind of colors, I'll try to match up the colors. But other than that, I don't do anything special day in and day out. I don't need to have anything in a specific order. I'm just doing my best here to put them in any kind of order that I will be able to journal every day. And a lot of times it will be like a printed paper and a blank paper, stuff like that. But other than that, I'm not digging out and putting a special paper on day 9. That's not how I roll. They're just getting in there and being put in there, and I'm going to bind them and not think about it again. And I'm not going to regret that. So now, since that's done, I'm going to get out my wire binding. Now, we had a little problem with this wire binding. I'm going to tell you, the Mini Cinch does not bind a 1-inch or larger wire. You can press them by hand. That was my intent here because I have done it many times before. That was my intent. And I did press it by hand. I cut that part out because I decided then to go with a different spiral binding because since the cover is this weird, slippery, thin material, no matter how much I closed the binding, it slipped out. I am, however, glad that I used the binding just to line up my papers, because if you have ever used the spiral binding that you will see me use in a little bit, I have found that I do miss holes. So lining it up this way is actually the easiest way to get everything done. And then I'm not going to miss a hole when I thread my spiral through the holes. So I'm just going to put this on. Like I said, I was planning on using this, but things just happened. I must have been having a bad day. Things just happened. And then I was like, okay, I can't. I'm not using this. I'm just going to move on. The great thing about the cinch is how easy it is to work. There are some cons with the cinch, especially the mini cinch. Like you cannot use over, I think it's 5/8 inch. I don't know, there's a certain size you're not able to use over that size to use the back to clamp it shut. I also think the holes might be a little screwy. I'm thinking of getting another brand. I'm really looking into the Zutter. Tell me down in the comments, do you have a Zutter? Do you love it? Is it easy to find the bindings? Because that's another thing. I prefer the spiral bindings for the cinch, but they're very hard to find. And you'll see in a little bit what I mean by the spiral bindings. They're very hard to find. They're very expensive on Amazon, and the only place you can really get them that I've found them that's at a decent price is scrapbook.com. It's just you can't find them generic ones because of the I think what the pitch from the cinch. It's hard to find generic ones. So here I am. I'm just going to wind this spiral in. And this is what I mean by a spiral. This is actually my favorite way to bind instead of using those wires. I don't like how sometimes your pages pop out. You can't flip it every which way. Once you get to the back cover, that's it. You gotta go back, or you can't just continually flip it like you can a spiral. So here I am. I'm just gonna go through and make sure that I got every hole. Like I said, sometimes you skip. So I'm making sure every piece is actually bound. And that's all I'm doing here, just making sure every piece is bound in the spiral. And it is. So now I will bend the wire. I'm sure there has to be an easier tool to do this, but you bend and crimp the wire so it doesn't unroll. I just use my needle nose pliers. Sorry, I'm off camera here. I'm not used to filming like this yet. I usually film for TikTok, not YouTube. So my camera is in a different position and it kind of threw me off a little bit. So I'm going to trim off that and just take my needle nose pliers and bend the wire back. That way it will not come loose and unwind. Like I said, I'm sure there's a tool for that. I really need to look to see if there is a tool for that. And here we go. Here is my March 2023 journal. Now we're going to work on the closure. I had an idea to use elastic and eyelets and that flap. I did make the back bigger to have a flap to bend it over, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So I'm just going to take my Tim Holtz ruler, the one that has the 0 in the middle. Love this ruler. And I'm going to find the center and mark 2 spots to punch my holes and add my eyelets. So I'm using the We Are Makers Crop-A-Dile and punching my holes. And once again, I'm sorry I'm off camera. I will get better at this if I film more. I'm hoping to film more for YouTube, so hopefully I'll get better at this. And then picking out 2 eyelets, I went with purple. My boyfriend said it was a very 90s notebook by the time I was done. And it is. It's very 90s notebook. That was not intentional. I don't know how that happened. So now that those are punched and the eyelets are in, I'm going to take my elastic. This elastic I got on Amazon. You get 2 big spools, one black, one white, for a very low price. I'm going to run it through my holes, run it around so I can tie it off. And then after this is tied off, I will be adding beads and charms to finish off the notebook and have a little bit of a dangle on the bottom. But there you go. That's how that works. It worked exactly how I wanted it to. And now I'm going to go and dig out some charms. I think I use an owl charm from a necklace my mom made me years ago that broke. It is pink and blue and purple. And then I also end up digging out a open book charm. I'm a big reader, so I make bookmarks, and when I make the bookmarks, I put the open book charm on the bookmark. I'm also pulling out beads from Dollar Tree. Now with these Dollar Tree beads, before you start stringing your beads with these wood beads, please take something sharp and dig around in it. You'll see what I do. I use my weeding tool from Cricut. A lot of times the wood and the paint block the holes, and you don't want to be stuck trying to clean out beads and in the middle of stringing the beads. So I just take my Cricut weeding tool and poke in through there. And I'm almost done here. I'm going to string them blue, purple, pink, and add a charm at the bottom and tie it off. And then that will definitely be the end of this video. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you liked what you see, please follow, like the video. I'm really hoping to bring you more videos like this. I really appreciate the views. I appreciate anything. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will definitely see you soon